Hello, yes, that's right. It's Joe here live on Joyrider TV with some more very exciting Q&A. I'm coming to you today from the all-new Joyrider TV studios. Yes, that's right, which is located close to Vasiliki, Lefkas, Greece, where the time is currently 5:35. The intention of this session is for me to answer your most pressing catamaran sailing questions. So if you happen to be watching live, then do pop your questions in the live chat. If you're watching later, and you can just put any questions in the comments section below the video, and I will answer your questions in next week's Q&A session, which will be at the same time next week. Thank you very much. So you may be wondering what has been going on in Vasiliki Bay this week. Well, I could tell you what hasn't been going on in Vasiliki Bay this week. The main event has, without a doubt, been the Ionian Regatta, which is probably our biggest event of the season here, where it's a long distance race. It's only 25 nautical miles, but what a 25 nautical miles it is. So I competed this year on the good ship Bad Boy 94, and it was full power, 20 knots, kite up, woo, that kind of stuff. Bang the jibe in just in the right spot, and then a hard upwind sail all the way back. Very nice indeed. So we've actually got the prize giving for that later on this evening. So if you're in town, I think you know where to come. I'm just going to check in with everybody who's checking in. Just like to say hello to James, and a massive shout out to all of Fleet 42 in Phoenix, Arizona, USA. James has a Prindle 16 and will be out sailing this weekend. So perhaps put it in the live chat. Are you going sailing this weekend? If you are, what are you going sailing on? And are you expecting some big wind? If you're stuck for anything to put in the live chat, that is. Like to say hello to Benny in Sweden. Great to have you on board, Benny. Lee is with us, Clearwater, Florida, as always. Nice to have you on board as well, Lee. And we've got Chris on board, probably sat on some sort of commercial vessel at this time in somewhere in the Texas area of the States. We've also got channel member Aaron on board in New Zealand, sometime in what most people would consider to be the middle of the night there. Johan 66 in the Netherlands. We've got Max in Rosenheim, Germany, saying hello to all cat sailors around the world. And apparently at this time, Rosenheim, Germany is cold. You heard it here first. Stephen's on board as well. Not sailing at present. We have a knee injury, tested its limitations, and unfortunately tested them a little bit too thoroughly. Lee is going sailing this week on his 16. We've got Mr. Tony KP in Denmark. Great to have you with us. Chris says, you missed some seriously good racing 2 weeks ago at Texas City Dyke Yacht Club on Galveston Bay. Yeah, unfortunately, I just couldn't get down at that sort of short notice. Yeah. So there we go. I think I'm just going to dive straight in to a bit of preloaded in the question department. So that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, so if you do watch this later and you put a question in the comments, I'll respond to it as a preloaded question, just like this one, which first question is from Arthur, who sails a Hobie 14 and paraphrasing his question slightly, he asks, when is it necessary to replace your lower rudder castings? So when are your lower rudder castings going to prevent you from being able to lock your rudders down so that they work as well as they possibly can? Well, it just so happens I've brought with me a lower rudder casting. Now, the most obvious time to replace one is if something like this has happened. Can we see this? Oh, boom. Yeah, that is definitely worthy of the bin, unless you know someone who can weld cast aluminium, but I don't know how well that would work. But these do last a very long time. I would say, given just thinking about the boats that we've got on the Wildwind Beach, which are a really good example of how long things last for, because the boats that we have on the Wildwind Beach in 1 year here, they would probably do similar in the actual use of what a normal boat would do in, I don't know, 20 years, something like that. So it's like accelerated usage testing that we do here. And so that would be in 1 year, which means the boat, some of the boats that we've got, some of our 16s are just coming up to 10 years old now, and their rudder castings are still functioning well so that the rudders can be locked down properly. So 10 years, if 1 year is 20 years, then 10 years must be 200 years old. So if you're, no, that can't be right, because as well as the use of the boat, there's also just the aging of everything. And the reason for replacing the rudder casting is when these holes, the ones here and the ones here, become enlarged. Now you can get some sort of bushing, like some metal bushing put in these holes, which will give your stocks, another word for rudder casting is rudder stock, which will give these stocks a new lease of life, which you'd think would mean they'd last for a long time. So yeah, if you can get these bushed, because it is something that can be overlooked. If your rudders are quite old and you absolutely can't get the rudders to stay as far in as possible while you're sailing, or if you put it down on the beach, pull it backwards and it's a bit of a gap starts to appear in here, it might not be because of the adjustment anywhere else. It might be because the holes in here or in here, or the holes that go through your rudder blades might have become elongated, which means the bolts can move backwards and forwards in there, which means your rudders are never going to set down as well as they should. The other thing, of course, is, in case you didn't know, this is from a Hobie 16, which is the same as the 14, same as the Dragoon. It's the same system as all of the Hobies, apart from the Wildcat and the newer Hobie 15s and Waves. But what we have is in here, this is where all of the mechanism lives, which holds the rudder down. So something very good that you can do is just to replace the cam that sits at the top. The spring would usually last, probably outlast the casting. So generally no need to replace the spring. But then you've got the plunger, which is the bit that follows the cam. So the cam has how does this shape to it, So that fits inside there. This is not to scale. Maybe if I move this out a bit, let's see. Yeah, it's a bit more like that. This isn't as easy as it might be. Yeah, so that sits in there. And then the thing that holds the cam in position is a black part or a white part. Actually, I think they did start coming in 2 colors. This is called the plunger, which is basically a cam follower. And then underneath the plunger is a spring, which fits in this cavity here. And then underneath the spring is a plastic screw, which we can alter the tension of the spring with, which will basically mean how easy it is for the rudders to come up. So if this spring is very loose, the rudders will come up very easily, which if they're too loose might actually mean the rudders will come up while you're just sailing along because of the pressure on the rudder blade. If you have this very tight, it means the rudders are not going to come up very easily, which if you have them too tight, it means if you lift the tiller arm to pull your rudders up from on the boat, the cam will not go into the other position where it flips like that through 90 degrees, which will mean next time you go to put your rudders down, you won't be able to lock them in because you will have what is known as an inverted cam. So there you go. That's what goes on in there. So yes, replace the cams, the plungers, and it's a good idea if your plastic screws, your Delrin screws, if they're looking a bit old and knackered, then yes, get some new ones. They're not expensive, so you might as well replace that. And that way you are doing everything you can to keep your rudder system working in good order. Keep everything greased as well with some waterproof grease. I always put a bit of grease on the screw. So every time I service some rudders, even if it's locking down perfectly, I'll loosen the screw off most of the way, put a bit of grease on it, screw it back in. Lovely. I'll also stick a bit of grease in here and in here, just to make sure everything's moving as it should be without any excessive wear taking place on the system. So there we go. I would say that is when to replace your lower casting. Now, if you were to say, what about the upper casting? If you've got a very old boat, sorry for any non-Hobie sailors out there, which this is quite specific, but the upper casting, if we look at it from above, the more modern ones, which I would say are probably anything from the 80s and newer, looking at it from above, there's the upper casting from above. There's your tiller arm, and then you'll have a slot here with a bolt on top, and this bolt connects to what we call the cam stop plate, which sits on the inside. So when your rudder is down, we're going to draw it in. This cam stop plate fits in here. Here's the bolt that goes up here through to the upper casting, and then the upper casting is kind of here. So for the older boats, like the boats from the 70s, maybe into the 80s as well, they don't actually have this adjustment, which means you really are at the will of the gods whether your rudder is going to lock down as it should do. So if you haven't got that system and your rudder's not locking down very well, and you've checked the holes in the rudder blades, the holes in everything, they're not elongated, it all seems quite snug, then perhaps it's worth replacing those upper castings as well. One other thing, if your rudders, when you lock them down, are sitting quite far back, like maybe even 45 degrees, even with this adjusted all the way in, then that would be an indication that you might have the wrong rudders for your boat. Because even though the rudder blades might look similar, are we right here? So if we draw a rudder blade, simple one, we have two holes in the rudder blade like this, one for the upper casting, one for the lower casting. The holes have to be in the right place. From the factory, they would have come in the right place, but there's two different styles of rudder blade that Hobie use. Most common examples, one for the Hobie 16, one for the Hobie 18, and they do share the same shape, but the hole, this hole will be in a different place on the Hobie 18. And if that is the case and you're trying to put it on a 16 or vice versa, it's not going to lock down correctly. So what you would have to do is fill that hole with epoxy, find a proper rudder blade for your type of boat, clamp the two together, and then drill a new hole through the blade to take the bolt so it's in the right spot. There we go. I think that pretty much covers it there. I hope that was very interesting for everybody who likes rudders. I'm definitely a big fan of rudders, which is why I enjoy talking about rudders. All right, Johan 66 says it's getting colder, so changing, oh dear, beginning of the end, changing from a shorty to a full wetsuit. Stephen says, can you tell us more about your plans for next year in Vasiliki, where I live? Yeah, so as you may or may not be aware, I've been working for Wildwind Sailing Holidays in Vasiliki now for 28 years. Wildwind Sailing Holidays is without fail the best place. I'm willing to put this out here, the best place to go catamaran sailing in the world, because we have got the boats, we have got the best sailing area to go out on. We have got fantastic conditions. When it's windy, the sea stays flat. We have got very, very good safety cover. So if you want to go out and push the limits and you crash a few times, there will always be a safety boat with you in a very short time to help you or just to give you that confidence that you require. And over the last 28 years, I've helped to shape Wildwind Sailing Holidays into the monster that it is now. And this is a real statistic. 70% of the people that come here again. That's a big percentage, I think you'll find, when there's so much choice for places to go. The other thing which makes us pretty unique out here is that when other sailing schools or sailing centres or places where you might hire a boat will be saying, no, sorry, you can't have a boat today because the wind is too strong, we'll actually probably be organising a race in those conditions. So that is pretty unique with what we're doing. We're offering pretty unrestricted sailing in very strong winds. Not all of the time, though, because every morning we have light wind, perfect for trying something new, or if you haven't done much sailing before, it is really very nice indeed. But yes, I've been here for a long time, and I like to think that I have been involved in how it is now, which is very good. But I've decided after this amount of time, and because of you guys, the viewers of Joyrider TV, I'm feeling that it is time for me to step aside from the role on the beach at Wildwind Sailing Holidays and focus more on the videos. like and the live Q&A like this. One big improvement that I've got in the pocket for the live Q&A is what I'm going to look at doing is, and I'm going to make it happen, I just need a bit of time to sort it out, is during the Q&A in the preloaded questions section, what my intention is to actually record, where it's appropriate, record a video to answer the preloaded questions, which, so at a time like this, if I was going to say, for our next preloaded question, is Bill in Canada who asks this, and then I'll press the button, video will come on, and there will be the answer very nicely presented, and I can just have a drink while that's going on. Nice feature. That is going to be something that's going on. Something else that I'm looking at doing alongside the YouTube videos is putting together a catamaran sailing course online. And my idea for the first course is going to be from complete beginner through to race course. Everything you need to know to get from here to here in up to moderate amounts of wind. And I'll do this as a video course, which you can buy and download. And I'm expecting for that to be about 15 hours of video in total, which you can watch at your leisure or work through it as you go out. So you could watch video 1 and 2, go out sailing, go, all right, we got that, or we didn't get that, let's watch that again. And then once you've got that, you move on to the next video and so on. So it's a real sequenced program of everything you need to know to go on that journey. I think it's a good idea. Put it in the comments below whether you think that's a good idea. I think it's a good idea. And also what I'm going to be doing is private instruction for anybody who is lucky enough to come here, or if you want me to come to your sailing venue, depending on where it is, and to make it financially viable for everybody involved. So, for example, if someone in Texas wanted me to go there to do some private instruction, then perhaps if we lined up enough people who wanted private instruction, I could come to Texas for 2 weeks or something and spend a day or half a day with maybe 8 different people in that time, that kind of thing. Haven't quite worked out the details yet, but that's what I'm looking at doing. There we go. We've got Gaza on board, or Gazer. I have a split on the front of the, I think it's bow rather than bowel, on my Hobie 15. It looks like 2 parts of the bow have come apart. Oh, right. Okay. So what would you say is the best way of repairing? So what I'm thinking this would look like, thinking / kind of guessing a little bit, is if we were to look straight on